Hello and welcome to the Hyperion Driver-Based Planning tutorial. In this lesson, we will talk about headcount for planning in the Hyperion application. After forecasting revenue and expenses, you need to plan headcount. The system will calculate wage and salary expense based on this headcount. You will first need to open the Modify Headcount Forecast Drivers web form under the Headcount Modification section of your task list. Then, you need to select the planning cost center you wish to work with and refresh the form. On this form, the notional headcount is suggested by the system based on the revenue drivers already configured. The prior month headcount is automatically loaded into Hyperion and is based on the number of employees, their job codes, geographic locations, and most importantly, their home cost centers on record with Human Resources. As a user, you are not able to change these values. Calculated attrition is also read-only since it is calculated by the system and based on the business unit attrition rate to which this planning cost center belongs. The attrition rates are found on the Review Employee Rates web form found under the Standard Ledger Drivers and Results section. When you open the Review Employee Rates form, you will see a table with all the headcount related rates. For example, you can see the average pay rate for each job level per geography, benefits, bonus rates, and at the bottom you can see the attrition rate your planning cost center is using. These values can only be adjusted by a system administrator, so if you need to have any of the rates changed, contact your finance lead or the Hyperion application lead. We can now go back to the Modify Headcount Forecast Drivers web form where we will adjust and plan for our headcount. Assuming we believe the notional headcount is realistic, and since the actual headcount found on the ending headcount field is only 33, we need to add 97 heads to get to that notional headcount. To add headcount, go to the Adjust Hires section and unhide all the rows. This displays all job codes. You can distribute the 97 hires based on the job codes you wish to actually hire. Remember, the number in each job code will be multiplied by the associated average wage rate for that job code region that you saw in the Review Employee Rates web form. For this example, we will hire 30 D5 level employees, 30 D4, 30 D2, and 5 A1, all of them in the US region, for a total of 95 hires. We still need 2 employees to reach our desired headcount of 97. We will close this gap by planning for 2 temps. We will cover that process in a few minutes. Click on Submit, and this will update the ending headcount on the web form. The expected process is to get your ending headcount to match the system notional headcount. You will still need to run a calculation for the wages and benefits account values to be calculated. You can see the results of the calculation on the Input and Adjust web form. On these rows you can see the current wages and salaries, bonus, benefits, and temporary personnel expenses values. We will look at August, which is the month that we are forecasting. As shown here, we have entered the planned hires for August, so now you need to submit the calculation. Right-click, go to Smart View, and click on Calculate Results. Remember, this is just a plan. You have to actually go out and hire people. After the calculation finishes, you can go back to the Input and Adjustment web form and see the results. On this web form, you can manually make financial adjustments in the yellow cells. So you need to scroll to the Calculated Wages row to see the effect of the last calculation. As you can see, there is a difference between the values showing compared to previous months since several employees have been added to the forecast. These are dollar amounts. We still need 2 employees to match the notional headcount, so we will go back to the Modify Headcount Forecast Drivers web form, and in this example add 2 temporary personnel to our overall headcount. On the Adjust Hires section, unhide the rows that are not visible. Scroll all the way down and you will see Temp Hire options. Here there are no job codes, only geography. We will hire 2 in the US, then submit the form. Now the ending headcount is 130, which is the same as the notional headcount. Temporary personnel expenses show as 0 even though we just added 2 temporary positions. Temporary headcount does not trigger an expense automatically, so we need to provide the estimated cost of temporary labor. To do that, you need to open the Create or Modify Expense Forecast web form. We can use Control F, type in the word temp, and this will quickly take us to the Temporary Personnel Expenses Account section of this web form. As you can see, there are drivers already set up here. One with a 12-month average as the driver type, and a second expense driver for the same account has a type of Existing Account Value. This second driver is configured to pull in the value of a statistical account named Headcount Temp US. The benefit of using a statistical account to drive the expense is that it will adjust the planned expense as the number of temps goes up and down in future months. If you have additional questions about setting up expense drivers, refer to the video Expense Drivers. As part of this driver configuration, you have to set the rate for the temp hires by month. In this case, we will enter $4,300. Going back to the adjustment web form, the temporary personnel expense value is still blank. Remember, you need to submit a calculation to see the result of the rate times the number of heads. After the calculation completes, go back to the adjustment web form again and click on Refresh. Looking at the month of August, we see a temporary personnel expense of $8,600, which is the result of 2 US temps times $4,300. Notice on the expense driver web form that the driver we are working with does not have a driver value queue or quantity, since the values are coming from the Headcount Temp US statistical account. We will now discuss attrition adjustments. Keeping with this same example, we will update our headcount plan for September. Remember that the notional headcount comes from the revenue drivers, so we will look back at the revenue forecast web form. Specifically, notional headcount is the result of quantity divided by FTE throughput. We will focus on the driver type labeled accounts. Let's assume there have been some software improvements that allow our quantity per FTE to improve from 10 accounts to 100 accounts per month. If our quantity stays the same, the notional headcount will suggest a smaller number of employees are needed to do the same amount of work based on the same quantity of accounts now being divided by a larger FTE throughput. Going over to the headcount web form, click on Refresh to display the notional headcount for September. The system now suggests we only need 10 heads, which is less than the prior month. The ending headcount is currently 110 for September, so the system is suggesting we need to reduce 100 heads. Since we need to reduce 100 heads, you need to identify the job codes and geographies that have at least 100 heads in the prior month in order to enter any attrition. One of the rules for reducing heads in Hyperion is you can't reduce more heads than you have in the prior month. Unhide the job code rows so you can see prior month headcount details. You can add color to help identify the rows that contain the job codes you want to reduce. Now that you know what job codes contain headcount, go to the Adjust Attrition section and unhide the rows. You need to now go to the same job codes and enter the amounts you need to reduce as whole numbers. The number of attrition you put in is a management decision. You do not have to do what the notional headcount is suggesting. We will also reduce one of the U.S. temp employees. As always, when making changes, submit to place the data on the server. Submitting the data is necessary before running calculations. In this example, before running the calculation, we see that we have reduced 6 heads too many by mistake. If we had run this calculation, we will encounter an error. Now, why did this mistake happen? We did not factor in calculated attrition per job code. This is also the reason why September's ending headcount was 110 and not 130 as we had established for August. To correct this, go back to the attrition adjustment section, slide back over to September 2017, and reduce the attrition by 16. This should get us to match the notional headcount of 10 for September. Submit the data and check the ending headcount again. Now that it shows 10 heads, you can go ahead and calculate the results. Remember, your goal is to get an ending headcount that is realistic for your business based on the volume of work expected. To review the financial impact of our adjustments, go back to the Adjustments web form. You will notice there are large wage amounts currently on the form based on our headcount of over 100. After we calculate and refresh, we see the impact of reducing our headcount to only 10. Notice the dramatic reduction in wages, salaries, and benefits. Recapping, headcount is suggested by revenue drivers. Going to the Headcount web form, we see the notional headcounts that the system suggests, as well as the actual headcounts by job code. Based on your business decisions, you make adjustments to the hires or attrition, run a calculation, and you will see the financial impact of those decisions on the Adjustments web form. After the calculation ran, notice that the temporary expenses are 0 for the month of September. We know we have 1 temp headcount in the US, so we need to double check our work. Looking at the Headcount web form, you can confirm the 1 US temp employee is still in the system. Let's go now to the Expense Driver web form and see if we can figure out what the problem is. Here you see that a driver rate was not added for September. All of our drivers operate using the simple algebra of P times Q. If one is empty or 0, our result is 0. When I set up this driver, I should have copied the rate to all months. That is a good and necessary practice when configuring any driver. Thank you for your time and attention. Goodbye.